the NFL declaration deadline passed with plenty of surprises. None bigger came than that of Kyler Murray, who entered his name into the pool even with his pro baseball career already underway. For an in-depth look at everyone gone early from college football, take a look here. Many teams suffered losses, but some hit far harder than others. The real winners and losers will be determined on the field next season. Who expected something like Quinnen Williams' emergence after the loss of Daron Payne, or for Murray to be, arguably, even better than Baker Mayfield? But until kickoffs return, here's a look at which teams won and lost the NFL declaration deadline. Iowa is in a situation with a rare double tight end early departure. Noah Fant and T.J. Hawkinson may be the two best tight ends in the draft, and the Hawkeyes lost both after they combined for 88 catches, 13 touchdowns and 1,278 yards. The good news for the passing game is the return of Nathan Stanley. Stanley could be the biggest NFL quarterback prospect in the Big Ten next season. The Hawkeyes will also have to do things without All-American defensive back Amani Hooker and defensive end Anthony Nelson. Can Kirk Ferentz pull off another major reload? Last year's successes at linebacker after losing Josey Jewell is a positive sign. Getting Justin Herbert back is the biggest individual win of the draft cycle, period. It is not often that the projected #1 quarterback passes on NFL draft options to return to school. Combine that with Oregon's absurd recruiting class in 2019 under Mario Cristobal and there is some serious hype about the Ducks for next season. The underrated return comes via Troy Dye. He is well known among college fans but did not have the same kind of national attention as Herbert. The bowl game was considered to be a proving ground for him, but he chose to return even after a strong performance. Washington does not have the same volume in terms of attrition, but Taylor Rapp and Byron Murphy are two guys that may be irreplaceable. Yes, Trey Adams returns, but that only goes so far given injury concerns after season-ending surgery. On the defensive side of the ball, Rapp and Murphy are among the best in the college football world at what they do. Rapp's Rose Bowl absence was a tough one to overcome against an elite defense. Brandon McKinney filled in against Ohio State, and may do so next season. As a three-year starter for the Huskies, Rapp finished his career with 171 tackles, 7 sacks and 7 interceptions. Murphy went from a red shirt to an injury season to 14 starts and a dominant showing this year. CBS views him as a top 20 pick. Washington should still be among the best in the Pac-12 next season. Many are excited to see what Jacob Eason does in taking over at quarterback, but rebuilding the defensive secondary is the key to another top 10 run for Chris Peterson. Devin White and Greedy Williams were essentially locks for the NFL first round before the season began, so neither departure is too big of a surprise for LSU. The Tigers are prepared to replace both. The emergence of players like Grant DeLip definitely helps soothe those losses. He should compete for SEC Defensive Player of the Year in 2019. Sue and coach Ed Orgeron, who have high expectations in 2019, got some other wins in the NFL cycle. The return of Christian Fulton helps the corners after losing Williams. The same goes at linebacker with Michael Divinity. LSU's defensive line should be an impact one with the return of Braden Fehoko and Rashad Lawrence. They teamed up for 70 tackles, 13.5 TFLs and 5.5 sacks. The transfer portal has been the bane of Penn State fans this week. 7 Nittany Lions have their names in, including multiple with legitimate playing time under James Franklin. When it comes to the NFL, Penn State loses an elite line prospect, Connor McGovern, and breakout running back Miles Sanders. Pass rusher Sheriff Miller, defensive tackle Kevin Givens and Ryan Bates are all also gone from the trenches in favor of pro aspirations. Steven Gonzalez returns as an interior lineman, and Penn State has much better depth in the trenches compared to when Franklin first arrived on the scene. How is Ohio State a winner when the Buckeyes potentially lost the top 2 picks in April's NFL draft to early departure? It comes in the details. Nick Bosa was a generational talent at defensive end, but would a healthy, enrolled Bosa made the rest of the year go any differently for the Buckeyes? We doubt Bosa would have made up for 29 points against Purdue with his pass-rushing skills. At quarterback, no one can blame Dwayne Haskins for his decision. Losing Haskins plus Tate Martell cannot feel good, but Justin Fields assuages many of those concerns. What can Ryan Day do with the former No. 2 overall recruit in the country? Fields needs a waiver first, but we will likely find out in 2018. Then you look at the rest of the returns. Kendall Sheffield will be missed at cornerback, but Damon Arnett is back on the other side. Jordan Fuller is back at safety, too, and will be a big part of what Nuco DC Jeff Hafley has planned in the secondary. Malik Harrison returns at outside linebacker. That makes the top 2 tacklers back in action between Harrison and Fuller. Offensively, KJ Hill will be a top toy for Fields. Hill returns as last year's second leading receiver behind the record-setting Paris Campbell. Georgia's offense is going to look a lot different with the departure of 4 impact players. While losing 4 players to the NFL is the norm for a team that recruits and develops at the level of Georgia, the offense may need some time to adjust after the losses of Elijah Holyfield, Mecole Hardman, Riley Ridley and Isaac Nauta. For perspective, that represents 40.7% of last year's yards from scrimmage as well as 45% of the team's offensive touchdowns. Junior Jake Fromm is back and more important than ever after the transfer of Justin Fields. Fromm, DeAndre Swift and Zamir White are the likely stars of 2019 on the Georgia gridiron. Fromm and Swift are both draft eligible at the end of the season. Texas will certainly miss Lil Jordan Humphrey at wide receiver, but the return of Colin Johnson plus other development and recruiting at the position has the Longhorns' offense in a good spot as Sam Ehlinger gears up for a Heisman campaign. Defensive back Brandon Jones was another meaningful return, fresh off 48 tackles and 2 picks as a junior. Jones' return is huge news for the Texas defense, which will lose several senior starters from its 2018 roster, including cornerback Chris Boyd, defensive end Brecken Hager and linebacker Gary Johnson, and will give the Longhorns a veteran voice in the secondary next season. Texas also welcomes back Malcolm Roach, who should start at defensive end opposite Taquin Graham. Alabama defensive tackle Quinnen Williams' loser is a harsh way to view things when you have the No. 1 recruiting class coming to campus and one of the best quarterbacks in the game headed into his junior season. But look at it this way. Alabama set a college record when it comes to the number of players that declared early for the NFL draft. The Crimson Tide lose arguably the best left tackle and the best defensive tackle early in college football. Combine the 7 declarations and Alabama must replace 1,597 yards and 21 touchdowns from last season on top of the departing seniors. Defensively, they lose 281 tackles, 28.5 TFLs, 9 sacks and 7 picks from early declarations. Still, there could have been more attrition, and those that come back will do so with a vengeance, after the way the season ended against Clemson. The team at Bama Online took a look at how players like Jonah Williams and Quinnen Williams can be replaced. Alabama has some big names back too, including Raekwon Davis and Trevon Diggs. New players will have to step up to replace Mack Wilson, Deontay Thompson and Syvion Smith. Derek Brown will be back for his senior season. The buzz around Auburn has been a lot more positive ever since Gus Malzahn declared martial law on the offensive playbook and smoked Purdue in the Music City Bowl. Those good vibes carried over into the NFL decisions of many players. Yes, the Tigers have to find a way to replace Jarrett Stidham at quarterback, and most of the top grad transfers are off the market right now. Will it be true freshman Bo Nix? Auburn also lost Jamel Dean at corner and Darius Slayton at receiver. The defensive front is going to be a serious problem for opposing teams next season. Javaris Davis joins defensive tackle Derek Brown and defensive end Marlon Davidson and his potential draft picks, deciding instead to return to Auburn for their senior seasons. Brown was projected to be a first or second round selection in the upcoming draft. That trio teamed up for 135 tackles, 18 TFLs, 8 sacks and 2 interceptions last year. Barton Simmons, 247 sports director of scouting, called it a Clemson-ish situation where Auburn's defensive line shapes up to be one of the best in the country. Left tackle Prince Tiagowanagho Jr. is also back to anchor the line.